welcome. Greetings to the Ministry of the Real Truth, where today we will be looking at several Americanized modern Bible versions translated into English, such as the New International Version or NIV, the King James Version, KJV, the New English Bible with Apocrypha, the Jerusalem Bible, and others, and the key information contained within each in their prefaces or their forewords, so that you all will hopefully realize the difference between those and an original manuscript, as we'll demonstrate, translated into English from the original languages. That you'll come to realize that they could be more reliable to both read and absorb and better understand, and lead you to realize they are the real deal, the real version of the ancient scriptures, right? That one should really read and absorb. So when you go out into the world and you teach and preach, you'll be rest assured that you are actually telling the truth, okay? Because you have the accurate meaning of what's been said from the original manuscripts in the original language, spoken by the original scribes and prophets, and Jesus and his disciples, translated into English. Okay, so we're going to have a look at the King James 1611 version. This is an old version I have here that's been published around 1968. Okay, we're looking at page 5. Okay, it's here. It's an old, real old King James. I think it's a red letter edition. Giant print reference concordance. Yeah, the purpose on page 5. In the preface to the 1611 edition, the translators of the Authorized Version, known popularly as the King James Version, King James Bible, state that it was not their purpose to make a good new translation, but to make a good one better. Indebted to the earlier work of William Tyndale and others, they saw their best contribution to consist in revising and enhancing the excellence of the English versions, which had sprung from the Reformation of the 16th century. In harmony with the purpose of the King James scholars, the translators and editors of the present work have not pursued a goal of innovation. They have perceived the Holy Bible, New King James Version, as a continuation of the labours of the earlier translators, thus unlocking for today's readers the spiritual treasures found especially in the Authorized Version of the Holy Scriptures, or the King James Version. Yeah. A living legacy. For nearly 400 years, and throughout several revisions of its English form, the King James Bible has been deeply revered among the English-speaking peoples of the world. The precision of translation, for which it is historically renowned, and its majesty of style have enabled the monumental version of the Word of God to become the mainspring of the religion, language, and legal foundations of our civilization. Okay, so what it's basically saying here is it's not a completely new version. They've just continued on from an older works, okay, by Tyndale and others of the Protestant Reformation. Okay, it's a new continuation of an old works. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, that's something to be aware of in the King James Version, but we have this older version which has that dedication letter in the front of it to King James. Let me just have a look, see what that one is. It's a big version here. And here it has what does this say? Okay, in this big ass thick brick here, okay, with the Last Supper picture on it. Okay, it doesn't like tell you that in the beginning here. Okay, it's got the dedication letter right there. And most of these old King James versions do. Okay, yeah, just basically, oh, here we go. The introduction, Just tells you about the Bible. Doesn't really have a preface telling you, who on a committee, etc., etc., revised it as the other one did. Okay, it's just a dedication letter to Prince James or King James to be, and that's about it. Okay, it says the Bible takes its name from the Greek word ta biblia, meaning the books. When Latin became the universal language, ta biblia passed into Latin as a singular noun and thus into English as Bible. The book, the Bible implies, and it goes on like that. Okay, it's not really expanding you on the King James version. Okay, what else do we have? We have the NIV, which states, okay, here's something to take note of. New International Version, Study Bible with Concordance. Our Words of Christ in Red Letter by Zondervan. The NIV Study Bible. It's got the copyright details here that you've got to follow. It's got a chronology table at the front there. Okay, from Genesis to Jesus' resurrection, etc., or Revelations. Okay, it says here, tribute to Edwin H. Palmer, who had served so capably as Executive Secretary of the NIV Committee, or New International Version Committee, on Bible translation, and as a coordinator of all translation work on the NIV, was appointed General Editor of the NIV Study Bible by Zondervan Bible Publishers in 1979. On September 16, 1980, he departed this life to be with Christ, which is better by far. Philippians 1:23. Okay, so we look at Philippians 1:23, because that seems to say there exactly this, right? Have a look at Philippians to see what that actually says when we find it. Okay, so Philippians 1:23. Okay, says here, I am torn between the two. Okay, we'll go back a bit further up here. If I am to go on living in the body, this will mean fruitful labour for me. Yet what shall I choose? This is possibly Paul talking to somebody else. Yet what shall I choose? I do not know. I am torn between the two. I desire to depart or fly away and be with Christ, which is better by far. But it is more necessary for you, whoever he's talking to, that I remain in the body. Convinced of this, I know that I will remain and I will continue with all of you for your progress and joy in faith. Okay, so he's talking to one or more. Okay, so what they're saying in this tribute to Edwin H. Palmer, what they're hinting at, I believe, is they're saying that he died and he went to be with Christ, right? Okay. But scripturally, biblically, it doesn't say that. Okay, it says that you die, the physical death, the bodily death, you go into the grave, or Sheol, or Hades, you remain there in a slumber until Judgment Day. Angel of the Lord is told, blow the trumpet, and all those who died awake. The people who died, martyrs, etc., before you, they're the first, okay, to go judgment, all that sort of stuff, condemnation, whatever. Well, those who died in Christ, they're the first ones, to rise and go to paradise, etc. And then all those who died after that period and who still live and are still living, those are in Christ. Well, first those that have died, right? Okay, they rise up. Everyone rises up, actually. Everyone rises up from the grave and they go to be judged, and they're in. If their name's in the book of life, they go on to eternal life in paradise, live with God. Okay, but if they aren't, then they're condemned and they go to the lake of fire, because then they're not in the book of life, to go to the lake of fire, and it's eternal death, right? Etc. etc. So yeah, that's to clear up that, because that's what it seems to be hinting at to me. Okay, that they're saying you die and you go straight to be with Christ. Okay, where it's not scriptural. Okay, so in this international version, they got the preface, right? And they're saying here on page, I don't even know what this page is here, it's got an indication what page this is. Okay, it's a page 9, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, preface. Right, it says here, the New International Version is a completely new translation of the Holy Bible made by over 100 scholars working directly from the best available Hebrew, Aramaic and Greek texts. Okay, that's what they're stating. It had its beginning in 1965, when after several years of exploratory study by committees from the Christian Reformed Church and the National Association of Evangelicals, a group of scholars met at Palos Heights, Illinois, and concurred. Okay, they decided, they all agreed, in the need, come to a conclusion, right? An agreement for the need for a new translation of the Bible in contemporary English. Okay. So every couple of years, someone's bringing out a new version, a revised version, right? Okay. And the need for a new translation of the Bible in contemporary English, or modern English. Okay. This group, though not made up, okay, take note of this. This group, though not made up of official church representatives, was trans-denominational. That means like came from various denominations, right? Its conclusion was endorsed or funded by a large number of leaders from many denominations who met in Chicago in 1966, or backed up, approved of, backed up, funded. Responsibility for the new version was delegated by the Palos Heights group to a self-governing body, so they were, made their own decisions. Of 15, they came to the final decisions, conclusions, etc. The Committee on Bible Translation, composed or made up of the most part of biblical scholars from colleges, universities, and seminaries. So maybe some had qualifications there. They knew what they're talking about, what they're doing and involved in, etc. In 1967, the New York Bible Society, now the International Bible Society, they changed name, generously undertook the financial sponsorship. Okay, they donated, gave money, for this, of the project. A sponsorship that made it possible to enlist the help of many distinguished scholars, outside of that committee. The fact that participants from the United States, Great Britain, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand worked together gave the project its international scope. Well, if they didn't, well, it would be a national scope, wouldn't it? Or local. That they were from many denominations, including Anglican, Assemblies of God, Baptist, Brethren, Christian Reformed Church of Christ, Evangelical Free, Lutheran, Mennonite, Methodist, Nazarene, Presbyterian, Wesleyan, and other churches, helped to safeguard the translation from sectarian bias. It's somewhat like, adding some pagan ideas or some other twistings, bias, prejudice, whatever, to it, How it was made helps to give the New International Version its distinctiveness. The translation of each book was assigned to a team of scholars. Next, one of the intermediate editorial committees revised the initial translation, with constant reference to the Hebrew, Aramaic or Greek. Their work then went to one of the general editorial committees, probably a panel of 6 or something like that, which checked it in detail and made another thorough revision. So they made some changes to it. Because means to do again. Revision. They looked over it and decided, well, it needs this and that. This revision in turn was carefully reviewed by the Committee on Bible Translation, which made further changes. Okay, so they made further revisions and changes, and then released the final version before it was published, to be published for publication. In this way, the entire Bible underwent 3 revisions. which is quite good, quite thorough, I suppose. During each of which the translation was examined for its faithfulness to the original languages and for its English style. Okay, so that's what they're saying there. Okay, it's probably what they had in mind, but you don't know that there may be a set set structural information that they want people to know. Okay, I'm not saying that they're crooks or anything like that. It's just that they may have this agenda or this motive or this agenda to put out a certain translation. It may not be exactly what it said, It actually says in ancient original scriptures, the languages, etc., etc. Okay, there may be something that a certain party wants put out there for, say, if they had hidden or if they had a motive or hidden agenda. Okay, a bunch of paid shills. That there was a form to be able to control people, keep them dumbed, all that sort of stuff. Okay, but here I think that they'll be pretty. Yeah, I'd say they'll be pretty trustworthy. Okay, but you take it like with a grain of salt. Okay, okay. All this involved many thousands of hours of research and discussion regarding the meaning of the text and the precise way of putting them into English. It may well be that no other translation has been made by a more thorough process of review and revision from committee to committee than this one, the NIV. And then they had certain goals for the New International Version, that it would be an accurate translation and one that would have clarity and literary quality and so prove suitable for public and private reading, teaching, preaching, memorizing and liturgical use. The committee also sought to preserve some measure of continuity with the long tradition of translating the scriptures into English and so forth. They were united in a commitment to the authority and infallibility of the Bible as God's word in written form, and there's a whole lot more pages of that. It's just a basic rundown of that. So that's what they're saying in that one. Let's have a look at the preface to the New English Bible, page 5. There's the New English Bible here, very old, but tatty. Okay, in May 1946, the General Assembly of the Church of Scotland received an overture from the Presbytery of Stirling and Dunblane, where it had been initiated by the Reverend G. S. Hendry, recommending that a translation of the Bible be made in the language of that present day, inasmuch as the language of the Authorized Version, or King James, already archaic, means old as, when it was made, very, very old, right, had now become even more definitely archaic, even older, and less generally understood. Because of the thee, thou, thy, though, Shakespearean speak, right? Romeo and Juliet speak, because nobody speaks that these days, or those days. Yes, that could be confusing. The General Assembly resolved to make an approach to other churches, and as a result, delegates of the Church of England, the Church of Scotland, and the Methodist, Baptist, and Congregational churches met in conference in October. They recommended that the work should be undertaken, that a completely new translation should be made, rather than a revision, such as had earlier been contemplated by the University Presses of Oxford and Cambridge, and that the translators should be free to employ a contemporary idiom, that's their own thoughts and expressions, a modern idiom, right? Rather than produce the traditional biblical English, as everybody else did, right, before them. In January 1947, a second conference held like the first in the General Hall, Westminster, included representatives of the University Presses. At the request of this conference, the churches named above appointed representatives to form the Joint Committee on a New Translation of the Bible. This committee met blah blah blah. Right. At a much later date, the hierarchies of the Roman Catholic Church in England and Scotland accepted an invitation to appoint representatives, and those attended as observers. The Joint Committee provided for the actual work of translation from the original tongues by appointing the 3 panels, the original languages, right? Sacred Old Tongues, apparently, supposedly, by appointing 3 panels to deal respectively with the Old Testament, the Apocrypha, and the New Testament. Their members were scholars drawn. They were scholars, so they had some qualifications there, right? But scholars are like people who, they're like students. They undertake a course or whatever like that. Okay, and they become well versed in it. Okay, that's the definition. I can't remember. Drawn from various, but yeah, they'd have probably have some sort of qualification to be recognised, whatever. Drawn from various British universities, whom the committee believed to be representing of competent biblical scholarship. So yeah, I basically confirmed it there. At the present time, apprehending, however, that sound scholarship does not necessarily carry with it a delicate sense of English style. Yeah? The committee appointed a fourth panel of trusted literary advisors to whom all the works of the translating panels was to be submitted for scrutiny. It should be said that denominational considerations played no part in the appointment of the panels, and the joint committee issued general directions to the panels in pursuance of the aims which the enterprise had in view. And it goes on about the panels adopting the following procedure. An individual was invited to submit a draft translation of a particular book or group of books. Normally he would be a member of the panel concerned. Very occasionally a draft translation was invited from a scholar outside the panel who was known to have worked specially on the book in question. Yes, so they take that into consideration. The draft was circulated in typescript to members of the panel for their consideration. Then they met together and discussed the draft around a table, verse by verse, sentence by sentence. Each member brought his view about the meaning of the original to the judgment of his fellows, and discussion went on until they reached a common mind. And so forth, so forth. Okay, looks like they've still had people. So since January 1948, the Joint Committee has met regularly twice a year in the Jerusalem Chamber, Westminster Abbey, with 4 exceptions during 1954-5, when the Langham Rooms and precincts of the Abbey was kindly made available. At these meetings, the committee has received reports on the progress of the work from the conveners of the 4 panels, and its members have had in their hands typescripts of the book so far translated and revised. They have made such comments and given such advice, or decisions as they judge to be necessary, and from time to time have met members of the panels of conference, etc., etc. Of the original members of the panels, most have happily been able to stay with the work all through, though some have been lost through death or otherwise, and their places have been filled by fresh appointments. Okay, so that's that one there. That's what they're saying there in the preface. Okay, NIV, I think we already covered this. I'm not sure. I don't think we did. I don't know if we did. I don't think we did. Okay, preface. The New International Version is a completely new translation of the Holy Bible made by over 100 scholars working directly from the best available Hebrew. I think we already covered this, didn't we? I'm sure we did. With the NIV. Yeah, I'm sure we did. It's basically saying the same. They all met in committee. It's that one there. Smaller version. They all met in a committee, decided they wanted to translate, make a new translation, a revision, etc., etc. Okay, then you have the Jerusalem Bible, and they're basically saying the same sort of thing. When the Jerusalem Editor's Foreword, page 5. When the Jerusalem Bible was first published in English in 1966, the foreword to the complete standard edition announced its objects to serve 2 pressing needs facing the church: the need to keep abreast of the times, and a need to deepen theological thought. Okay, theology. Okay, that was something that was created. Okay, at a certain point in time. This double program was carried out by translating the ancient text into the language we use today, English, contemporary English, modern English, and by providing notes to the text which were neither sectarian, okay, nor superficial. Okay, they were all like based on what it actually says. They weren't like, oh, we'll just make something up and put it in there, you know. Yeah, and they're not secular nor superficial. In that foreword also, the dependence of the translators on the original pioneer work of the School of Biblical Studies in Jerusalem was acknowledged, and the English version was offered as an entirely faithful rendering of the original text, which in doubtful points preserved the text established, and for the most part the interpretation adopted by the school in the light of the most recent researchers in the field of history, archaeology, and literary criticism. With the text, the standard edition presented the full explanatory notes. that would enable any student to confirm for himself the interpretations that were adopted, to appreciate the theological implications drawn from them, and to understand the complex relations between different parts of the Bible. However, the Bible is not only for students undergoing a formal course of study, and there has been an immediate demand for an edition of the Jerusalem Bible, which would bring the modern clarity of the text before the ordinary reader and open to him the results of modern researchers without either justifying them at length in literary and historical notes or linking them with doctrinal studies and so forth. So that's basically what that's saying. So what I'm trying to get out here, okay, it's enough of that. I think we did this one, the New English Bible. Okay, it's basically, those are all modern, Americanized, modern versions translated into English, revised, rewritten, possibly re-edited, heavily edited, passages added, passages taken away, and so forth, maybe some contradictions, errors, mistakes, whatever theologians claim is the problem with many of these, like the Jerusalem Bible. Don't trust it, blah blah blah, don't rely on it, or something like that, because of this reason, that reason, right? So what I'm trying to get at here is, as I said, those are all Americanized, modern Bible versions. Okay, so they're going to get a lot of what's actually coming from the original scriptures, and say the original ancient Aramaic, Assyrian Aramaic, or Kitab Asheret, or Kitab Hotep, Lishana Atika, Lishana Cypraea, or the ancient Hebrew, Kitab Iri. Wrong. Okay, you're going to have bad translations, bad transliterations, lots of contradictions, mistakes, etc., etc. So, aforementioned. Okay, so here you have, like, say, you have a translation in English done by a native-born, fluent-speaking Aramaic translated filmmaker, right, from Mesopotamia, Bet-Nari, okay, which is of Assyria. Okay, translating these supposed original hidden and preserved manuscripts into English. See, you have a difference. Okay, so if this is a later new translation, or a revision, or a re-editing, or whatever like that, okay, if it's supposed to be from the original languages, okay, you're going to have some difference in translations. But if it's totally way off, then there's something not right here, is it? Is it right? There's something wrong here. Okay. So which one would you trust? Which one? This one's like, say you have the Old Testament in the original languages used by the scribes and ancient Old Testament scribes and prophets, right, in that original language. Okay. And then the Aramaic Galilean that Jesus and his 12 disciples spoke, translated into English, because supposedly Thomas, the disciple, flees Jerusalem when the church is destroyed, whatever, goes across lands, goes to say Urhai, sets up a church there. Okay, so he founded it, commissions some high priests or whatever, appoints them, whatever, right? And he runs off with the manuscripts. He might not necessarily have written them himself. Perhaps Matthew did, or somebody else, somebody that was literate, right? So he grabs those and he runs off, and he gives it to them, who then hide it and preserve it, because obviously the Roman Catholic Church, if they got hold of it, they'd either burn it, put them to the sword, or whatever, right? And they'd never see the light of day, or they'd heavily edit it, and all that sort of stuff, like it in the Vatican vault. Okay, and Islam invaded, but they weren't really interested in their text. They just wanted their land. But they said, no idols, nothing that you venerate. Okay, so they got rid of those. Not that saying that they worship idols or anything. These icons, right? These images, these whatever. Okay, that being Apostolic Orthodox Catholics, they might have like a statue of Christ or something like that, right? So they said, none of that. But so what they did was they changed them into icons, pictures. Okay, and then they were left alone. They were told you can live under peace, Islamic law, but just behave in some. Okay. Yeah. So which one would you go with? Something from the 800 BCE, Old Testament, and something from the 1st century to the 4th century AD, right? As it says down here. Or would you go with something from 1611 that's in Shakespeare speak that nobody understands, or Romeo and Juliet, thee, thou, thou, thee, whatever, and you're confused, you can't understand because you don't know that old Victorian language. It's a dead language, right? They only use it on stage plays and stuff like that. Shakespeare, right? So, like here, this coming from the original Church of the East, okay, the Apostolic Orthodox Catholic Church of the East, and I think this is Angel Gabriel Roth, right? This is just a JPEG of it, and his Syriac, his translation of the original Eastern Syriac Peshitta, and he's written here. Okay, this is the Syriac font from the AramaicsScriptures.com website, possibly. And he says here, the Holy Scriptures, the New Covenant of Jesus the Messiah, or Yeshua Mashiach, or Yeshua Mashiach, written in the original ancient Aramaic language of the Messiah and his disciples, found in an ancient abandoned Church of the East congregation in the Middle East, abandoned due to the Holocaust, perpetrated against the Assyrian and Armenian Christians by the Turkish people of the Ottoman Empire. And what were they? They were Muslims, Mohammedans, or Muslims, right? Because they're trying to establish their faith, their belief system is the number one, the one and the only. Okay, if you don't believe in Muhammad as the prophet, or Allah as the one true God, and Muhammad as the prophet, curtains for you, right? So they've got to get rid of that. It's like you have competition, opposition. So you've got to get rid of them, and then you're the only one left. And then no one can challenge you, right? Because you wiped all the other ones out. The competition out, with the opposition. Yeah? So whatever went on in those days, I heard that this Ottoman guy was like really, really cruel, really, really bad, right? Yeah, so that's basically what they did there to the Assyrian and Armenian Christians. Probably destroy their icons. This is modern times. Their ancient churches and architecture and all that sort of stuff. Probably do that. Okay, so hopefully this has made you more aware that be really careful of these Americanized modern Bible versions, okay, because a lot of them are bad translations, contradictions, errors, etc., right? And just bad as transliterations, supposedly corrupt and all that sort of stuff. They give you the wrong meaning a lot of the time, right? You can compare what Christ said on the cross when he was dying, and here in the English versions, American modernized versions, right, where they say, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Right? When in the original Aramaic Galilean, he didn't say that, and it doesn't. Wherefore have you abandoned me, or have you destined me? Okay, which the wherefore indicates the purpose that he was on the cross, right? It was just like the will of God, etc., like that, and he fulfilled it. Okay? So you're going to get like this one, and then people coming at you saying, "This is what it says. This is the truth. Blah blah blah. This is the infallible word of God." It can't be infallible or irrefutable, or infallible. Let's say infallible. It can't be infallible, or it can't be infallible if there's incorrect translations or bad transliterations, etc., inside of it, right? Okay, so it's better to trust a hidden and preserved manuscript that hasn't been messed with. It's been attested to by, as I say in all the other videos, the patriarch of that church, 1957. What's his name? Ma Isai Shamun, right? 1957. That those original manuscripts were never messed with. And Angel Gabriel Roth attests to that, and so does the Aramaic translator, Victor N. Alexander, at Mesopotamia. Okay, so they're in sync and they're establishing a fact. Okay, if you know how to establish a fact, what it takes to establish a fact, then you'll realise that they must sync, right? They don't know each other, never met each other, never sat in the same room, one can't influence all the others to drop their perspectives, their understanding and follow his, embrace his. Okay, so yeah, so you gotta, yeah, hopefully you're aware of that. And you'll realize, well, yeah, I really need to know what the real scriptures say from this original languages translated in English, like you're saying, Mr. Minister of the Truth, real truth. Yeah, so how do I do that? Well, basically just watch our videos, subscribe to our channel, leave your comments below, set that bell, to be notified of any videos that we have created and put up on our channel, the Ministry of the Real Truth, so you don't miss out. Yeah, add your comments, tell your friends, all your Christian friends, Jews, Muslim friends, other religious friends, they're in other religions. You have to really want to know the truth about Christ or Yahshua Mashiach, then you come to the Ministry of the Real Truth. Because we don't pull the hat over your eyes, we don't blind you, tell you a whole lot of fluff, right? We present you with the real truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And honesty is our best policy. Also, we do live now. Sort of still, well, we want to do it on Sunday, but I don't know if anybody will be around on Sundays. Most go to church at night time, whatever you know. So yeah, we'll probably do live through either YouTube or Zoom every Sunday around about 6:30, between 6 and 6:30, because sometimes things happen, machines blow up, or something happens. So yeah, roughly about that time, about 6:05, between 6:05 and 6:30 New Zealand time, Pacific time, every Sunday for the present. Look on our channel, the Ministry of the Real Truth. There's videos there that probably will say something like the Ministry of the Real Truth live on Sundays. Okay. We used to put the date and all that, but we just put Sundays. Okay. So, Isho Mashika, Maya Isho Mashika. Bless and keep you. Okay. And we will see you on our next video.